was a homebrew to you? What did it do for you?
You know, this is not about Apple. This is about homebrew. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for homebrew. And everybody has this image. Steve Jobs came and said, Steve, well, with your design skills, you've got to build this computer. No, it was the HomeBrew Computer Club that told me that. The first night we met in Gordon French's garage, my friend Alan Baum, who's here, said, there's this group, they're going to meet. They're into things like video terminals, and I designed a cool video terminal. I would just get an idea in my head and build project after project after project in my home. So I had a video terminal. I thought, I'll go down and I'll be a hero as a big designer and engineer. And I sat down there, and they're all talking about this thing called a microprocessor. Okay, and I hadn't followed the microprocessor. Sure, at Hewlett-Packard, we built our little calculators with a type of processor inside, but they're talking 8080 and 8008, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got so scared. I'm not one of these kind of people that knows what's going on. I'm out of it. This is not a club for me. I'm never coming back. And they passed out a data sheet for a microprocessor that night, an 8008 from a Canadian company. I took it home and studied it, and I said, oh my God, these microprocessors are one chip, might sell for $400. That was scary. One chip that is all the computers I used to design on paper back in high school that I loved. I said, oh my gosh, my dream of having my own computer. That night, I saw the formula. Because I had a video terminal that could talk to faraway computers, I said I can put a microprocessor on it. That didn't make it quite a usable computer. You needed, later in the summer, dynamic memory. The 4K dynamic memory made it affordable. But the club that was composed of people, all these people that were talking like Bob Albrecht and Lee, and there were other Stanford professors and Berkeley professors talking about the social revolution. I love this idea of being part of a revolution. Grew up very, anti-government, anti-war, that kind of thing in the Vietnam days. And I wanted to be a part of a revolution, but it was the technical revolution would spur a social revolution where we could send messages, and within an hour, 100 people might be able to read the message and know that the anti-war march had changed its location in Oakland, and that kids were going to now type an answer and get corrected immediately. You know how important it is to correct somebody immediately. You don't, spank the dog right away. If you wait 5 seconds, it's too late. Well, so with homework, why did we wait a whole day? I heard these ideas in the computer club. These were intellectuals. I was just a geek who was very skilled at having an idea. I could turn it into a real working device. But these were the intellectuals that I admired in the world, the people that thought about society being different. And Lee was the leader. He'd come up there, and everyone had so much respect for Lee as he guided our meeting. We had first a backing period. People would stand up. It was give. This club was all as altruistic and charitable as you could ever imagine. Nonprofit. People would say, I've got some information about a certain teletech. I've got certain kind of parts. And other people would say, I need help with such and such. And then after this mapping period, we'd break and we'd go, and we had a random access period. You could go and meet up with the people that you wanted to be touched by. And I felt so good. I wanted to be such a giving person my whole life, as much as I wanted to be a great engineer. And I was quiet and shy, never spoke up in the club, but I wanted to be a part of this thing, and I wanted to help others. So I wrote a few things for our club newsletter, just little programs to help other people see how programs are written, helps teach, because that's how I had learned. And then, of course, when I designed my little microprocessor computer, I wanted to pass out the designs to everybody for free, because these were the people that were going to change the world. The trouble is, they weren't all builders. You didn't want to sit down with soldering irons and build things. You wanted to buy a ready-to-use product, and I had the guide in my pocket, my Hewlett-Packard calculator, where I worked. You pulled it out of the box, you turned it on. Yes, it's a processor, and it's running a program that's built in. And what does the program do? It says, when a key gets pressed, do something. Press a 5 key, put a 5 in the display. And then it says, what key is being pressed? Press a 2. Put a 2 in the display. You press enter, it says store it somewhere. I said, oh my gosh, I could write a little program. And it took 256 bytes, and that took 2 of these chips called PROMs. 2 chips in those days, just for 256 bytes of a program that said, what is he typing on the keyboard? And what you could type on the keyboard? With all those old computers, like the Altair, you press buttons, and I'd actually built one of those 5 years before myself when I had to build the processor myself. There were no microprocessors. You press the buttons 10, 10, 10, and you press a button and it goes into an address register, and press some more ones and zeros, and it goes into memory, and it goes into memory. You fill up memory, and it's so exciting to hear how we did that with the Altair that was playing the music in our club. And it's just so exciting, a thing in life to learn computers, but I was past that and wanted a machine ready to use. But now what I would do is type the data in and it would go straight into memory. How much easier that was. And that was, you can see that the ideas are very simple, but they were all spurred by what was going on in that club. Every other Wednesday night we met. We moved from Gordon's Garage to a cafeteria at Slack, into the auditorium at Slack, and I just had about this size of an auditorium. And I sat in the very back row because I could plug in and actually be typing in, debugging my BASIC. I wanted to write BASIC. Why? Bill Gates was known in our club. He had written a BASIC for the Altair and the Intel machines. You could buy BASIC on paper tape and feed it in through an expensive teletype. Wow, his name was known. And my name, I'm just sort of always in the background, shy, never heard from. I will get known if I write the first BASIC for my machine. And I sat down and wrote the BASIC so fast, and I would demo it at the club. But I'm going to tell one last story, and it was the time, it's already complimented Lee, but there were an awful lot of other people. And Alan Bounds, the one who told me come to the club meeting, he threw out so many of the ideas that turned out to be great things in the Apple II that I get credit for. And Bill Fernandez would just throw out ideas, and Chris Espinosa and Randy Wigginton, a couple of high school kids, everybody in the club that talked to me and said, and had ideas. Those were what inspired me as to what should go in a computer and really be useful for people. I wanted to be a part of this so bad, as shy as I was. And so I forget what I was going to get into, but something.
Would all the people who worked with Steve at HomeBrew stand up? The ones he mentioned and whoever else. Thank you.
And I drove Randy Wigginton to every meeting. The way I met Randy, he's a high schooler in the club. We had a couple of them. He says, anyone live near this area? And I did. So I drove him down to every meeting of the club, and he was so important throughout Apple history. But even before Apple started, he was one of those people that were important. And you know, you start a company. I looked at the club as being a very non-profit thing. And companies are companies, and we started Apple for real. I said, that doesn't go along with the club. It's a totally different thing. It's a business. But, you know, I didn't even feel good that all the top people owned a whole lot of stock and made a lot of money. And all these other people were so important that I just mentioned really didn't get any. So I took huge amounts, millions of dollars of my own stock and gave it to the people that helped, you know, that were just back here with the inspiration and the idea stage. It's so important, you know, what came from this club, the most important day of my life, as I said before, every other Wednesday night, to go and to listen to what these people were saying about how these computers were going to change our lives. And sure, they were going to do geeky things like manipulate our garage door openers, you know, and we loved that idea, but that wasn't for the real world necessarily, but these were great ideas that were so inspirational. A lot of it never really happened. The computer that we imagined really never came to be. In fact, I had this idea, wow, you can have a problem and write a program and solve it. Nobody wants to write programs in the end. They just want to buy it pre-done for themselves. And we were going to give a tool that would make everybody a master. And here's one concept that came out in our club meetings. That one time, some of you that were at that meeting are going to remember exactly these words. That you would go, one of the concepts was you didn't own your own computer. You went in, you wrote a program, you handed it in a window, they handed you back some punch cards, you took it to another window, you put it in the window, they ran it, they gave you a printout, you fixed it, you did it again. And you weren't ever close to the machine, and we all wanted to be close to our own machine. We had no money. We were so poor. It would usually take us 6 months to a year to save even $400 for a bare minimal kit that didn't do much at all. But you know, but we wanted to own our own computer, and that drove me a lot. And then people talked about how you were going to go into your company, and you were going to take in your own little machine, and your little 10-year-old fifth grader student was going to write the software to take the company's financial numbers and crank out what the company should do. And the mainframe, the big $1 million mainframe, and the high-paid programming gurus, the word guru was used, that they would, all of a sudden, you'd be beating them with your little machine. And what that meant to me was the little guy that had technical knowledge and was a geek and knew his electronics and his computers, instead of being the unnoticed guy in the company that nobody paid attention to, was all of a sudden going to be really important. And that was, everybody was going to be empowered and a master of their own life. So that's what I have to say.
Let me invite a few more people.